And flex SRS runway, and thrust is set. Folks, and welcome to Max Thrust RC and Microsoft Flight Simulator. And today we're looking at 5 common mistakes that people make in Flight Simulator. These are just some mistakes that I've noticed through watching some YouTube videos, so I thought I would point them out. Take them with a pinch of salt if you want to, but hey, let's get into them and have a look. So, as you can see at the moment, we are paused and we're currently downwind at the lovely Kennedy Space Center, of course. And the first thing we're going to have a look at is what's called VFE. Now, this is the maximum speed at which you can select flaps. So, we're here in the Cessna 172, and if you look on the airspeed indicator, you can see this white arc going around the outside. That is our flap speed. So the fastest speed we can take flaps in the Cessna 172 is at 85 knots, because that's where the arc starts. So what I see quite often is people just taking flaps at whatever speed they want. They pull the throttle back, could be 100 knots, and they're taking flaps. So what we need to do is actually get the speed back before we take the flaps. Sounds simple, so I'll just demonstrate it right now. If I come out of pause and we'll realign our DI, and once we get to our downwind to base turn, which is coming up very, very shortly, we will then take the power back, which we'll do now, and we'll hold the altitude and our speed will start coming back, you see? Now, once we get into that white arc, so 85 being the fastest, but I think we'll look at about 80 knots, we'll take our first stage of flap, and then we can take our second stage of flap for 70 knots, put the nose down, a little bit of power to maintain that 70 knots, and there we go. It's as simple as that. So that's the first mistake that I see people making. Nice and easy to understand. So now let's have a look at the second one. Okay, so here you can see we are established on final approach at the Kennedy Space Center. And what I see quite often is people coming in way too high and way too fast. So we're going to have a talk about what speed we should be doing over the threshold, and this is called VREF speed. So if I pause the simulator right about here, you can see that we're currently about 300 foot above the ground and about 65 knots. VREF speed is the speed you should be doing over the threshold. Now traditionally that would be 50 foot, but if you're in a Cessna, you might be aiming for the numbers, something like that. But anyway, if we just understand it as the speed at which we should be coming over the threshold. So the way to work this out is again actually by looking at our white arc. So we want to be doing 1.23 times VSO. Now there's a lot of numbers in there, so I'll make it and phrase it, so I'll break it down. VSO is basically the stall speed in the landing configuration. So in this instance, it's the bottom of the white arc, which is showing us 40 knots. So we want to do 40 times by 1.23. So if we put that into our calculator, that comes up as 49.2. So we'll round it up and we'll say 50 knots. So really we want to be doing 50 knots over the threshold. So once more, nice and simply, VREF, the speed we want to be over the threshold, is 1.23 times the speed of our landing configuration. So let's give that a go, shall we? If we unpause, and then we'll try and be 50 knots over the threshold. So we're 65 at the moment, which is a normal approach speed in the Cessna, and then we'll want to bleed that speed off as we get down towards the threshold, and that should give us a nice flare. coming over the threshold and we're at 50 knots. And then we hold it off, and you see we get that nose up, and then we get a nice touchdown. No nose wheel landing first there. And then we get a nice smooth touchdown, and we won't be floating along the runway. So there we go. That is the second thing. Now let's move on to the third. Okay, so the third thing I'm going to mention, and they put it in the simulator, so I guess people can use it if they want to, but I suppose it's more of a personal thing for me. But it's flying the aeroplane from the external camera view. You're out here, you know, it's flight simulator, you want it to be as realistic as possible. So, I mean, I don't see too many people flying their aeroplanes from a big rope strapped behind the aeroplane, but it's such long in the airflow. But, you know, also, you can do things that look quite normal from the outside. You know, so like, that looks like a fairly reasonable turn, but if you actually go into the cockpit camera, I mean, look at that bank angle, look, the speed's bleeding off, and it's all over the place. You know, conversely, if you want to go into a climb, you think, okay, right, well, let's just go, oh, that looks about right, doesn't it? You know, something like that. And then you go in and look at that massively high speeds coming off. Yeah, it just doesn't sit right with me. You know, this is Flight Simulator. It's not Grand Theft Auto 5. I mean, hey, look, if you guys enjoy flying from this view, then by all means enjoy it, knock yourselves out. But I think, you know, a proper flight simulator like this, you know, needs to be flown from inside the cockpit, where you can look around and you can have a look at your attitude, and you can just enjoy the environment of being in the cockpit like you would be in real life. So there we go. Maybe just a little personal niggly thing for me, but that was number 3. Now let's go and have a look at number 4. Okay, right. I'm looking at my chart. I've not been to Gatwick before, so I'm not entirely certain where I'm going. But I'll do my best. I'm gonna try. Let me see. Was it? What did he say? Oh, I'm not quite sure. Was it that one?
Golf Max Thrust, you've missed the taxiway, I've called you at least 3 times. Anybody else hear me call him at least 3 times? Anybody else?
Yeah, I heard. Why don't you do everyone a favour and just disconnect?
Okay, guys, so this is number 4. And it's something I've heard a couple of times on the online community. That seemed to be specific. Now, this is a great hobby for everyone to enjoy and perhaps, you know, live out their dream, or what imagine it would be like. So we want to include everyone, and we want to keep everybody happy online and to feel inclusive and enjoy the hobby. But I have heard on a couple of occasions some people taking it, I don't want to say too seriously, but perhaps they should be thinking about how they're treating others. In the real world, we use a thing called CRM, which is Crew Resource Management, and quite often shouting and berating somebody doesn't actually improve the situation. Quite often it can make things worse. So if people have been online and they've missed their taxiway, or they've made a small mistake, look, it's on Flight Simulator, it's not the end of the world. We want to make sure that they feel included, understand why they've made it. It's probably an honest mistake, you know, and let's keep everybody happy. They'll then learn from their mistake. They won't do it again, and yeah, it's just a better result. Now, one quick little tip for anyone who might be struggling with taxi instructions: if you're flying around in any aircraft that's got a McDo, as we have in the Airbus, you can just write your taxi instructions down here. So for example, what we've just done is Romeo Kilo 107, so for stand 107. So as you can see, we're taxiing along now on Kilo. We carry on going, and stand 107 is on the left. That way you've got something to cross-reference there in the box and on your charts, and you're not gonna forget it. Really, really useful tip, and you can do that with all sorts of things as well. Pushback instructions facing west, you just put a little a little W in there as well. So that all works as a great little aid memoir. Right, here's stand 107. Let's go look at number 5, the final point. Okay, folks, so you join me here at London Heathrow. Runway is 09. Right, it's looking very lovely. And the 5th and final thing that I notice is people flying their commercial jets, their A320s, etc., tend to under-rotate. A lot of people, if we zoom in, tend to get to 10 degrees and sort of stop. Now, the reason I can think for that is because, and this happens in the real thing, once you get to 10 degrees, the tail actually ends up getting into ground effect, which can mean you need a bit more of a pullback on the stick to keep the rotation going. So I can imagine that's probably why a lot of people get to 10 degrees. We really want to get up here to about 15 degrees until the flight directors stabilize. So that's really what we're looking for. And ideally, we'd want to be doing a rotation rate of 3 degrees per second. So that is 5 seconds to rotate to 15 degrees. Now, Flight Simulator is quite sensitive and quite jumpy, so that's quite difficult to achieve. It's much easier to do in the real aeroplane, but yeah, in Flight Sim, as long as you get to 15 degrees, then you'll be gaining your altitude at the right rate. The speed won't be increasing out of control, and things should be good. So without further ado, let's have a go at doing that. So stick half forward, 50%. Stabilized, and flex SRS runway, and thrust is set. 80 knots, begin relaxing the pressure on the stick. 100 knots, that's checked. V1, rotate. Up to our 15 degrees, positive climb gear up, and up we go, 15 degrees, and then we'll hold it there until everything settles down, and then we can follow the flight directives. That's all there is to it. Now, acceleration altitude today was 1,500 feet above ground level, so we are coming up on that now. Select thrust climb and reduce the pitch down to just a little below 10 degrees, and we'll talk to Mr. Air Traffic Controller as well.
Heathrow Tower, Airbus Golf, Mike Alpha, X-ray
coming up
Tango,
on S speed, and we'll take flap 0, so the speed is checked, and flap 0. There we go, and away we go. And that's all there is to it, guys. So do please remember that everything you've seen in this video today is just for home simulation use only. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed it. I want to hear in the comments below what other mistakes you think people make in Flight Simulator. Yeah, and if you think I did a good job today, then do please consider hitting that subscribe button and the bell to get notified whenever I upload any videos. And if you give it a thumbs up as well, that would be very much appreciated. But if you didn't like it, by all means, feel free to give it a thumbs down too. Well, we've got a lovely looking London city stretching out in front of us, and we'll level off at 5,000 feet, and I'll see you next time on Max Thrust RC. Thank you very much for watching today, guys, and I'll see you next time.